Today we are going to read Quicksand, When Earth Turns to Liquid, and it's by Chris Hirschman. Now, Quicksand is a science article, and that's a type of genre that we've learned about in 3rd grade, and a science article is nonfiction. It can tell how something in nature works, and that's what we're going to read about today. We're also going to talk about text features. Some of the text features that you'll see in this in this science article will be photographs and captions, but what we're going to focus on is diagrams and labels. So let me read this to you. A diagram is a drawing that shows where things are, how something works, or when something happens. It has words or labels that tell more about the drawing. So right here you can see is a diagram. It can show where things are, how they work, or when something happens. And if you look at this one's got this caption right here, underground water flow. So you can see there's trees and there's the sky, there's grass, there's sand, then there's water, but then this is showing you underground, what the water does when it seeps into the ground. So let's quickly look through our text. You can see that we have photographs and captions right here. Movies do not always show the truth about quicksand. And then here's just this one must go with both of those. Then over here we have these two girls. Quicksand is not very hard to find. It is often just a mixture of water and sand. Interesting. Here's another one. Quicksand can form at the beach. Here's dirt and water, and here's pebbles and water. So you can kind of see the difference right there. On this page, we have another photograph. This Jeep is parked on the sand near the beach. Solid ground is firm enough to hold up this car. Then over here, we have another diagram, how quicksand forms. So remember in the beginning, it said that diagrams can tell us how something works. Well, over here, this diagram is telling us how quicksand forms. So it shows the same picture that we had up here, and with more labels. So it's showing right here is quicksand. Right here is quicksand. Over here it's dry. The water's flowing underneath. Then this right here is like a zoomed in picture. So it shows underground water flow is right here. Then there's sand particles and water droplets that are in the sand but not part of the flow. So that's teaching us how quicksand forms. And we'll read more to understand better. Here, this page talks about where quicksand is found. Quicksand is often found in wetlands. It is almost never found in deserts. And this is a swamp. Right here is the desert. Very dry in the desert, right? Here on this page, we'll learn about quicksand myths. So fiction and fact, and then more quicksand myths. We'll learn fiction and fact over here as well. I believe that's the end. Yep. So we're going to start reading Quicksand, When Earth Turns to Liquid by Chris Hirschman. Now, before we read, we're going to set a purpose. We are going to find out if quicksand is really as dangerous as it seems. And we've seen movies, or maybe we've read books where there's quicksand and it's kind of like this, like, oh no, get out of the quicksand. Well, we're going to find out if it's really as dangerous as it seems. So, what is quicksand? The word quicksand makes some people shiver with fear. If I look down here, shiver with fear means feel very afraid. This is probably because of the way many movies show quicksand. In films, quicksand is often a mysterious substance. It's bolded, we better come down here. Something that cannot be explained. So in films, quicksand is often a mysterious substance or something that cannot be explained, that sucks people and animals to their deaths. There was an exclamation mark, so I read it with some expression. Actual quicksand is very different from movie quicksand. It rarely harms people or animals. It doesn't usually hurt people or animals. That's down here. Real quicksand is not mysterious. It is a simple substance that forms naturally. Quicksand is often just sand with a lot of water between its particles. So particles is tiny pieces. This makes the sand soupy or runny. When the waterlogged sand, the very wet sand, can no longer support weight or hold up weight, it is called quick. So there's a question down here, and typically we do this in the second reading and I have you answer it on your paper. But what I want you to do is think about this. We're going to make a connection before we move on. Have you ever walked in sand or on sandy ground? I want you to compare it with the way quicksand is described on this page. So walking on sandy ground versus quicksand, right? Sand with a lot of water in between the particles, making it soupy or runny. Compare quicksand with the sand that you've experienced. Turn and talk to your partner. You can pause the video. Okay, let's go to the next page. Sand and other materials. A beach is a good place to see how water affects, so down here, can make a change in the sand. Materials is a word that we need to know too, things in nature. So let me start that again. A beach is a good place to see how water affects sand or can make a change in sand. In the area where waves roll onto the land, the sand changes. Here, water sinks into the sand. The water makes the sand loose and soft. For a few seconds, the surface acts like shallow quicksand or quicksand that's not deep. And you can see their little feet kind of just sinking into the sand. Sand is not the only substance that can become quick. Dirt, pebbles, and gravel can also quicken or become quicksand under the right conditions. This means that sometimes water mixes with one of these materials in just the right way. Then quicksand forms. How does quicksand form? Most of the time, particles of sand, dirt, and pebbles are packed close together to form a solid, stable ground or strong, unmoving ground. Firm ground can support the weight of a person, a car, or even a building. Conditions change when underground water forces its way between particles. The water pushes the particles farther apart. The solid ground starts to act like a liquid, or it becomes thin and watery. It is now quicksand. As long as the water flows or keeps moving, the particles will stay in their liquid state. Where is quicksand found? Water is the key ingredient or the most important part of quicksand. This means that quicksand is usually found in wetlands, and this is a picture of a wetland, or watery places. Marshes, rivers, creeks, and swamps often hide pools of quicksand. Deserts have a lot of sand, but they almost never contain quicksand or have quicksand. Deserts are dry places. Quicksand usually will not form without water. It does not matter how much sand there is in a place. Think about movie Quicksand again. Is quicksand really a mysterious substance? So now that we know, we've read, is quicksand really a mysterious substance? Does it really suck people and animals to their deaths? Now that you know the truth, you might not be so scared the next time you see quicksand in a movie. Now that's the end of the text, but right here there's some quicksand myths, and I think it's important that we read these because some of you might think, well, no, but quicksand, it really can. It sucked in my dog or something. Well, let's figure out the fiction and the fact of quicksand. So right here, quicksand myths. We have fiction and fact. So fiction, quicksand sucks you down. Okay, it sucks you down. That's the fiction, right? Here's the fact. Quicksand is thicker than water. It is easier for things to float in quicksand than in water. It is almost impossible to sink under completely. Okay, well, here's something else that's fiction. Quicksand is alive. Look, they made it look like it's alive, like it's reaching out to get people. Quicksand is not alive. When a person steps into quicksand, it moves with the person's motion. So when the person moves. Quicksand only looks like it's alive. So it might look, but it's not alive. Over here, fiction. Leeches and worms live in quicksand. Down here, leeches are worms that suck blood, okay? Here's the fact. There is rarely anything alive in quicksand, so don't worry about leeches or worms. Okay, here's the fiction. Quicksand is bottomless, like it goes down forever and ever and ever. Well, here's the fact. There are places with very deep quicksand. However, quicksand is not bottomless. Most quicksand is a few inches deep to less than waist deep. And that is the end of quicksand.